The first thing Amina heard was the sound of her own heartbeat. It was so loud, so heavy, that she thought even the walls of the small office could hear it. Her hands shook as she held her file close to her chest. She had worked late into the night finishing the reports, hoping it would impress her boss. But deep inside, she feared this meeting was not about the reports. The air smelled of old leather chairs and expensive perfume. The tall glass window behind Mr. Okoro's desk showed the lights of the city, glowing like stars in the distance. But in this room, the brightness of Lagos nightlife felt far away. Here, the silence was thick, the kind that made your stomach twist. "Do you want to keep your job, Amina?" Mr. Okoro's deep voice finally broke the silence. She swallowed hard. Her lips were dry. This was her only job, her only chance to send money back home to her mother in the village, to help her younger brother stay in school. Without it, her dreams, her family's dreams, would all collapse. "Yes, sir," she whispered. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes sharp like a predator's, scanning her as if she was not a person but something to own. "Then you know what you must give." Her breath caught in her throat. The room spun. She understood what he meant, but she didn't want to believe it. She had heard stories from other young women who worked in the city. Some said powerful men used their positions to take whatever they wanted. She had prayed it would never happen to her. But here she was, standing at the edge of a choice she never wanted to face. Her mind screamed no. Run. But her body was frozen. If she walked out, her mother's medicine would remain unpaid. Her brother would be sent out of school. Hunger would return to their house like an unwanted visitor. Tears filled her eyes. She looked down at the polished tiles, wishing they would open and swallow her whole. The silence stretched, heavy like chains. Then he stood up, walking slowly toward her. His footsteps echoed, each one like a drumbeat in her head. She felt trapped, like a bird in a cage with the door locked from outside. "Your silence," he said softly, almost like a whisper, "is the price." Her lips trembled. The words cut into her like a knife. Silence. If she spoke, no one would believe her. If she screamed, it would only make her lose everything. He had power. She had nothing but her dignity, and now even that was being taken. Her hands gripped the file tighter, knuckles white. She wanted to fight. She wanted to scream. But fear was stronger than her courage. Fear of poverty. Fear of shame. Fear of a world that often stood with the powerful, not the weak. When she finally left the office, the night air outside slapped her face with a rush of cold. The city buzzed with life, hawkers shouting by the roadside, downfall buses honking, people laughing in the distance. To everyone else, it was just another night. But for her, everything had changed. She walked quickly, her steps unsteady, her chest tight with pain. Tears slid down her cheeks, blending with the dust of the streets. She wanted to scream to the world, to shout what had been stolen from her, but her voice stayed locked inside her throat. At the bus stop, she stood alone under the flickering streetlight. She felt small, invisible, like a shadow. Yet inside her, a storm raged. She thought of her mother's smile, her brother's laughter, the sacrifices she had made to reach the city. Was this what it all led to? Was silence the only way to survive? The night whispered back at her, full of secrets and shadows. But somewhere deep in her heart, under the fear and pain, a tiny spark of anger lit up. It was small, fragile, but it was there. She knew the price of silence was heavy. She knew carrying this secret would break her spirit piece by piece. And as the bus finally screeched to a stop and she climbed in, her eyes stared out the window, unblinking. One question echoed in her mind. How long can silence last before it turns into a scream? The rooster crowed in the early morning, its call echoing across the village like an old secret being told again. Amina sat on the edge of her small bed, her eyes staring at nothing. She had not slept. The night kept replaying in her head like a broken drumbeat, louder and louder, refusing to fade away. Her phone buzzed on the wooden table. It was her mother calling from the village. Amina hesitated, then picked it up. "My daughter, how are you? Did you eat?" Her mother's warm voice floated through the speaker. Amina's throat tightened. She wanted to tell her everything, to cry and let the pain spill out. But she forced a smile into her voice. "I'm fine, Mama. I'm working hard. Don't worry." Her mother sighed. "God will bless you. Your brother is studying hard for his exams. He says when he grows up, he will take care of you the way you take care of him." The word stabbed her heart. If only Mama knew the price she had paid to keep her job. But Amina swallowed the truth, burying it deep inside. Silence was safer. Silence was survival. At the office later that day, whispers floated through the corridors like smoke. "Did you hear about Ngozi? She left suddenly, no explanation. They say the boss, well, you know how he is." "Shoo. Keep your voice down. Walls have ears." Amina walked past them, her file pressed tightly to her chest. Their words made her skin crawl. She was not the only one. Others had been here before. Others had vanished, their voices swallowed by the shadows of power. She tried to focus on her work, but the weight of shame pressed down on her shoulders. Every time Mr. Okoro's door opened, her heart jumped. Every time his eyes swept the office, she looked away quickly, afraid the truth might be written on her face. That Sunday, at church, she sat in the back row. The pastor's voice rang out. "The truth will always come to light. No matter how long the night, the morning will rise." The congregation echoed with amen, but Amina's lips stayed shut. Her eyes burned with tears she could not release. As the service ended, she overheard two women outside. "These city girls, always chasing money." Then later, they cry as if they were forced. My sister, nobody forces them. They choose it." Amina's hands curled into fists. They would never believe her. To them, she was just another girl in the city. Another story to judge. Another rumor to feed on. Back in her neighborhood, the whispers grew louder. Amina noticed the way people looked at her now, some with pity, some with suspicion. Children stopped playing when she walked by, their mothers pulling them close. "Do you think it's true?" a neighbor muttered as Amina passed. "They say rich men never leave girls untouched," another answered. Her chest tightened. The shadows were spreading. Even though no one knew the full story, the air was thick with half-truths and lies. That night, she stood outside her small room, staring at the stars above the city sky. Each star seemed distant, untouchable, yet burning. She wondered if anyone truly saw her, or if she was just another shadow hiding in plain sight. Her silence was supposed to protect her. But now it was turning into chains, binding her tighter every day. The whispers would not stop. They grew like fire, reaching corners she could not control. And deep down, she knew, one day, her silence would no longer be enough. As the wind howled through the streets, Amina closed her eyes. For the first time, she felt the spark of anger grow brighter inside her chest. The whispers in the shadows were not just about her, they were warnings, warnings of a darkness bigger than her pain. And though fear still gripped her heart, another voice whispered back, louder this time. "One day, you must speak. One day, silence will break." The morning sun spilled across the city like golden fire, but Amina's heart still carried the weight of night. Weeks had passed since that night in Mr. Okoro's office, yet the memory clung to her skin like a scar that would never fade. She had tried silence. She had tried to bury her pain. But silence was not protection. It was a prison. The whispers in the shadows had grown too loud, and the shame too heavy. One afternoon, while typing at her desk, she noticed a new girl in the office, barely 20, shy, with the same nervous smile Amina once wore. When Mr. Okoro called the girl into his office, Amina's chest tightened. She saw the fear in the girl's eyes, the same fear she had once carried. At that moment, something inside Amina broke. Or maybe it awakened. She could not let the cycle continue. She could not let another soul pay the same price she had paid. That evening, she sat in her small room, staring at her cracked mirror. Her reflection looked back at her, tired eyes, trembling lips, but a fire now burning deep inside. For the first time, she whispered the words aloud, her own truth. He took what was not his. The sound of her voice startled her, but it felt like release, like fresh air after being trapped too long. She repeated it again, louder. This time, her words carried strength. The next day, instead of going straight to her desk, Amina walked into the HR office. Her palms were sweating, but her voice was steady. She told them everything. At first, the woman behind the desk frowned, shaking her head. Do you know the weight of what you're saying? He is a powerful man. If this is not true, your life will be ruined. But Amina stood firm. Her silence had already ruined enough. Word spread quickly. Some people doubted her. Some whispered she was lying for attention. Others pitied her. But then, one by one, other women began to step forward. Quiet voices that had been locked away for years finally found the courage to speak. Soon, the shadows that once protected Mr. Okoro began to fall apart. The whispers were no longer about Amina, they were about him. His name filled the streets, the newspapers, and the church sermons. In the marketplace, women nodded at her as she passed. In her neighborhood, the same mouths that once judged her now spoke with respect. She was brave. She spoke for us all. She broke the silence. The fight was not easy. There were threats. There was pressure to withdraw her complaint. But Amina's spark had grown into a flame. She was no longer the quiet girl holding her file to her chest. She was a woman who had faced darkness and found her voice. Her mother called one night, crying softly. My daughter, they told me what happened. I did not know you carried such pain. I am proud of you. You are stronger than I ever dreamed. For the first time in weeks, Amina smiled. A real smile, not the first one she wore at work. Months later, the court made its ruling. Justice was slow, but it came. Mr. Okoro's name, once untouchable, was dragged through the mud of truth. His power was broken. Amina stood outside the courthouse, the hot African sun blazing on her face. Reporters crowded around her, cameras flashing, questions flying. But she did not shrink this time. She lifted her chin and spoke clearly. No woman should ever pay for her job with her dignity. Silence is the weapon of the powerful. But today, I choose my voice. Her words cut through the noise like thunder. The crowd went quiet, listening, truly listening. That night, back in her room, she wrote in her journal. For the first time, the words flowed freely, no longer trapped in fear. Silence was my prison. But my voice is my freedom. As she closed her book, the city outside was alive with noise, but inside her, there was peace. The kind of peace that comes when pain no longer controls you. Her journey was not over. Scars would remain. But she knew this truth, she had survived. And survival, in itself, was victory. The whispers in the shadows had finally turned into a chorus of voices. And in the heart of it all, Amina stood, not broken, but reborn.